You know, you've probably met this person, someone who seems to know absolutely everyone. They fit into any social circle, any group, but at the same time, they always feel like they're kind of on the outside looking in. Today, we're going to dive into this idea of the universal outsider, that person who is everywhere and yet nowhere all at once.
This one sentence, wow, it just perfectly sums up the whole paradox we're about to unpack. This is really the heart of it all. A person who is defined by this incredible ability to adapt, but also by this really deep sense of detachment.
So how do you even spot someone like this? Well, on the surface, they're like a social chameleon. They're masters at navigating any situation, seamlessly changing to fit the vibe and the needs of whatever group they're in. So, in one group, they might be the life of the party, right? Always got a joke, always bringing the energy. But then, in another circle, they're the complete opposite. They're the voice of reason, the one everyone looks to for a calm, grounded perspective.
And pretty soon, this ability to figure things out becomes one of their main roles. They get this reputation for just always having the right answer. And because they're so reliable, their phone is the one that's always ringing. For help with assignments, for advice about a job, for emotional support, you name it. They become this pillar for everybody else. But being that constant support, it creates this hidden weight, this unspoken dynamic that gets pretty heavy.
And that leads us right here, to the internal cost of being that person on the outside. The very thing that makes them so valuable to others, their strength, it ends up becoming its own kind of cage.
And look at the contrast here. It's so stark. What the world sees is this person who is completely unshakable. But for the person living it, that perception builds walls. It isolates them inside the very role they've worked so hard to perfect.
And this is the real kicker, isn't it? Their own helpfulness sends this subconscious message to everyone else that they don't have issues of their own. It just silently writes them out of the script for ever needing help or showing that they're vulnerable.
So, what happens when this person, the one who's supposedly unbreakable, actually starts to struggle? Well, they can't really turn to others, so they turn inward, and they rely on this fascinating and pretty lonely way of coping.
When they're faced with their own pain, they don't really process it like most of us would. Instead, they translate it.
The first thing to go is emotional language. Phrases like, I'm hurt or I'm feeling sad, they're just not an option. It doesn't fit the role that everyone expects them to play.
Instead of emotion, they turn to pure calculation. Pain becomes a data point. Disappointment is just a statistical outcome. It's this incredible way of trying to control something uncontrollable by just reframing it as something you saw coming all along.
And here is a perfect example of how that works. If someone ignores them, it's not felt as a personal rejection. It's just logged in their mind as, yep, expected outcome achieved. The emotional sting is basically neutralized by logic.
Now, you might be thinking that this sounds like an incredibly lonely existence, but here's the twist. His detachment doesn't really come from a place of bitterness. It comes from having a really high standard for what real connection looks like. And this is the key to his resilience. He actually knows what genuine, unconditional connection feels like. So he's just not willing to settle for the kind of transactional, what can you do for more relationships he sees all the time. And that high standard, it was set at home. With his family, he felt a kind of presence that wasn't based on what he could provide for them. It was just a given. And because of that, he just can't bring himself to accept these conditional attachments from the rest of the world. So what this means is, he's not out there desperately searching for connection. He's not chasing it. It's more like he's in a state of patient observation, just watching and waiting for something or someone that is statistically very rare. He's looking for the outlier, that 1% event. He's looking for the anomaly in all the data on human interaction that he's been collecting his entire life. And this definition is just so perfect. An anomaly isn't some romantic ideal. It's a person whose presence is totally unconditional. Someone who shows up not to take something from him, but to just be there. Someone who isn't scared off by his silence, because they're not there to be entertained or to be helped. They're there for him. Man, this is such a powerful way to think about strength. His kindness isn't some naive thing. It's a deliberate choice. A choice he makes even though he knows, logically, that the probability of being let down is high. That right there, that's the core of his character.
So as we wrap up, if there's one thing to take away, it's this. This person isn't looking for a savior. They don't need to be fixed. What they really, truly need is just to be seen, to be recognized for who they are, beyond their usefulness as a helper.
And it kind of makes you wonder, right? Could you be that anomaly for someone in your life? Could you be the person who shows up with no agenda, the one who offers their presence instead of expecting a performance?
And for the final thought I want to leave you with, maybe the most powerful one of all, what if this whole time we haven't been talking about someone you know? What if this was a reflection of you? A person who fits in everywhere, but is still waiting for that one place or that one person to finally feel like you belong?